to Encounter Youth's Eat, Sleep, Peace, Repeat series. It's all about well-being, how to look after yourself, and in the knowledge that you have been created to do certain things, and to do those things well, we need to protect our mental health and our physical health. And the best way actually to protect your mental health is to protect your physical health. So we discussed this at Limitless Festival 2020. It was all online on YouTube, so feel free, search Limitless Festival 2020 Abs Adakea, and you should find something on Life of Peace. And I break this whole series down in about 40 minutes. What we're doing here is we're expanding it and making it a little bit more personal, a little bit more engaging for you guys. And one of the ways that we were planning to do that was through meeting up on Thursdays in coffee shops, for which there has been one meeting. Before, if you are local to Birmingham, you all know that we have now been locked down starting from Tuesday. So we won't be able to do that anymore. We are still able to use the church facilities, and so I'll be coming back to you guys and letting you know what we'll plan in place of those coffee shop drop-ins, because we still do really want to speak to you, get to unpack some of this stuff a bit more, and we'll be running our Alpha Zoom and potentially some other Zoom things as well. So keep up to date with us on social media. But without any further ado though, let's move on to today's topic, which is sleep. So what is sleep? Well, we're all fairly familiar with that. It's often seen as this time of, bodily inactivity, but the opposite is true. Sleep is actually an active, essential and involuntary process that we can't really function without. In fact, we know that if we're deprived of sleep, then our brains are unable to store memories properly, we're unable to understand the difference between reality and hallucinations. Memories become really difficult to retrieve, it becomes hard to manage our mood, it becomes hard to digest our food effectively. It's just quite necessary. It's actually just as necessary as breathing, it's just that it takes longer for us to notice. Yes, if you don't sleep for a really long time, like 3 days, you could die. No, you would die. Some of you are like, oh no, I've done that many times. No, your brain will take mini sleeps. If you are prevented from sleeping, you will die. So let's look after ourselves. Let's not make our brains feel like they're on the verge of death from time to time. And instead, what I would like to do over the course of this episode is kind of give you a bit more awareness of what it is your body is using sleep for and why it's so necessary, but also how we can actually protect our sleep. So many of us kind of see sleep as a little bit of an inconvenience. I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase, I'll sleep when I'm dead. I heard it a lot growing up. I even subscribed to it for a little bit of my A-levels. If you know me better, you'll also know that I had a mental breakdown during my A-levels, so yeah, not a good idea. And actually, during sleep, our brain's able to process information and consolidate memory. That means even though we've learned things and they're in there, we've heard them before, you know that feeling when you get up to do something and you can do it a lot more easily than you could the day before? Say when you're playing a sport or an instrument, and it's actually when you take a break, sleep, and the next day, all the things that you were practicing and finding quite difficult are suddenly that little bit smoother, and that's consolidation. Our brain keeps practicing when we're asleep. So if we don't sleep, we don't get that much practice, basically, and we play ourselves effectively. So if you've got like an exam or mocks, I know a lot of you are doing exams at the moment, you might be tempted to stay up all night and not revise, Actually, what is by far more effective is to put in some slots of revision with some breaks in the evening, and then make sure you get a really good night's sleep, because then at least the things you did cover will actually still be there in the morning, as opposed to being unrested, panicked, and your memory is only partially stored. So sleep affects our ability to use language. It affects our concentration. I'm sure many of you know what it's like to try and pay attention to something when you've not had enough sleep. Even from some of you who, it seems like many moons ago on a Sunday morning, would be sat in the coffee lounge and you're trying to pay attention to me, but it's a Sunday morning and it's early and you don't like it, well, that is sleep, okay? We need to make sure that we still get the same amount of sleep on weekends as we do during the week, and that's the best way to protect our general rhythms and our mental health. If we compromise on our sleep, we compromise on our performance, on some of our relationships. We can be quite grouchy when we're not very well rested, and also our immune system. We are a lot more likely to get ill, and we're a lot more likely to get mentally ill. Depression and anxiety are both really driven by this lack of sleep, and one of the first things I do when we're working with a patient, yes, patient, not young person, I'm a psychotherapist, so I also have patients, and I also have a youth group. I don't refer to you guys as my patients, but anyway, so any patients that I work with, I'll say, let's check out your sleep first, make sure it's all sorted, and we use this process called sleep hygiene. I will come back to it. I will, I promise. So first of all, just in case you're not yet sure, that is worth learning about how to look after your sleep. Sleep is biblical. Okay. So in Psalm 127 verse 2, and I'm reading from the Message translation, so you know for sure what it is trying to tell you. It says, "It's useless to rise early and go to bed late and work your fingers to the bone. Don't you know how he enjoys giving rest to those he loves?" It's useless to rise early. Some of you are like, yay! And go to bed late, and you're like, ooh. Basically, it's useless to deprive yourself of sleep. We often do that because we might be worrying about something, or we're trying to do something in that time. And also, sometimes you don't know you're worrying. But some of you who stay up really late on consoles, it's because actually you don't want the stillness, and it might be that there's something that you're worrying about and you're filling that space as well. What we need is rest. And if we're not sure we're going to be able to rest, sometimes we avoid sleep, and it's just not very good for us. So it's important, therefore, even if we're struggling with sleep, to prioritize it in terms of making sure that we are in a routine where we're able to get to sleep at the right time, stay asleep for the duration of time that we need to sleep for, and wake up, so not sleep for too long. Yes, there is such thing as too much sleep, and many of you are getting it. Too much sleep means that our bodies have real trouble waking up properly, getting back in gear. We're out of sync with our circadian rhythm. Why have I done that? Rhythm? I like it. Yeah, otherwise known as our body clock. So if we're out of sync with our body clock, then our body cannot tell whether it's day or night. So why is that a problem? Well, actually, just like all the animals that we are aware of, our bodies know when it is night and day. Deep, deep inside, we know what time it is. However, if our sleep starts to roll to the wrong part of the day, we start to get confused about what time it is. Not at our deepest point, but somewhere just a little bit closer to the conscious level. So if that part of our brain is like, no, I think I'm going to sleep now, what happens is that the really, really innate part that is like, nope, the sun is definitely not down yet. What happens to that part is that it starts to fight the sleep. So some of you will have tried to catch up with sleep by sleeping at 3 a.m. and then trying to do 8 hours from then and wake up at 11. But even if that works, the quality of your sleep will be nowhere near as good as if you went to bed at 10 and woke up at 6 in the morning. Are you hearing my quick maths? Yeah. And the reason for that is that part deep down, our body knows it's not nighttime, and so it will keep fighting it. And there are loads of different hormones and neurotransmitters. The biology here is strong, guys. I'm just trying not to bore you. And so it's really important, therefore, that we're able to regulate our sleep so that we're falling asleep at night time and waking up in the morning. That is the best way to keep our minds nice and healthy and our bodies functioning really well. So, how do we do that? Well, this is back to that phrase I used, sleep hygiene, and that's effectively keeping our sleep clean. And that's about our routine. So that's when we wake up and when we sleep. It's also about our eating times because, funnily enough, we do quite like schedules, our bodies, and we find it a lot easier to do days if we have a really good routine of those core really important things, because that way our body knows, oh yeah, it's noon, this is when I eat my snack. Or I don't know, maybe that's a stupid time to eat a snack, but you understand what I'm saying. So by setting those times where we eat, where we go to sleep, when we wake up, we really help our routine. But how on earth do you fall asleep at a decent hour? You've tried it, you get into bed, and then you just lie awake, and then you get kind of bored, so you scroll on your phone and blah blah blah. Something gets in the way. Well, this is how to protect yourself. Have a bedtime routine. So, to have a bedtime routine, you first need a bedtime, and some of you will have those bedtimes enforced on you, others of you will have them, you'll be able to prescribe them for yourself. Some of you have a bedtime prescribed for you, but you don't choose to use it as your sleep time, which means you have these hours for which you're saying to your brain, I'm gonna be in bed, it's gonna be like when I'm sleeping, only you need to know the difference between when I get into bed and when I actually want to sleep. And guys, you are lying to yourselves because your brain doesn't understand that. It means that when you finally make the decision to sleep, it's not ready to. It's like trying to shut down a computer that still has tabs open. It will keep telling you there are still tabs open. Your thoughts will still be going. You'll still be planning things about tomorrow or remembering things from today. You've not actually shut down. So a really good way of preparing your brain for that time when you're going to sleep is to have a bedtime routine, and that's something like the kind of routine you give to a baby. Imagine, maybe some of you have younger siblings and you can remember what it was like, or maybe you have cousins, or maybe you just know a lot about children, and you'd know that usually parents give their babies a bath at night. So the baby has this bath, and then what happens, and it happens to all of us, if we have a bath or a shower, is that our temperature will increase. And in order to keep our bodies cool when our temperature is increasing, our heart rate gets higher. So when we get out of the bath, our temperature starts decreasing and our pulse rate starts coming down. And that process is really soothing. So after that nighttime bath or shower, your body starts to get ready to sleep, and within about 45 minutes to an hour it will be ready to do so. You, however, can screw that up by doing something that keeps you awake. So, ways of not doing that. Having a warm beverage, nothing with caffeine, so no coffee, tea or hot chocolate, only decaffeinated tea. I wouldn't even say decaffeinated coffee because that's still quite high in caffeine. And or a herbal tea or hot water or warm milk, okay? You give babies warm milk, there's a reason for it. It's soothing. And you can have that in the evening, and again your brain's being like, oh, we've had the shower, now the warm milk, maybe bedtime must be approaching. And then you can do things to start your mind slowing down as well. So reading a book, not like, you know, some murder mystery thriller or something that's too interesting. Preferably something that is, you know, mildly, like, quite chill. So the Bible, that's a really good one. You can read the Bible, it's quite chill. Or you can read, there are some like sleep stories actually out there, but not on a computer. You need to have like printed it off or ordered them online or something. You can read something like that. You can listen to like audiobooks or listen to podcasts and things like that, so that you're not having to use your eyes, you're not having to focus too much. And one of the reasons I'm talking about what you're looking at is because as part of a bedtime routine, it's great to set a blue light curfew. Now, as kids of the modern age, likely you are aware that your phones and electrical devices have a lot of blue light in them. And what that means is that sunlight, white light, has the whole spectrum of light in it, from the reddest light to the bluest light. And what happens is that our brains, when we see blue light, we think day, because our brains see the sun and know day. We're very simple actually at the end of the day. So if we have electronic devices that are flooding us with this white light, that full spectrum of light that has blue light in it, then what happens is that our brain is like, is it day? But I think it's night, but is it day? I don't know. And it's actually really anxiety provoking for your mind to have to workout. So a really good thing that you can do is have a time where you stop looking at electrical devices. Another factor about phones specifically and social media, separately to like Netflix or YouTube or whatever, is that actually our phones and notifications also keep us really alert. And even if we're not in a really, really stressful conversation with a friend, or the group chat isn't like popping or whatever, we kind of lie in wait for the next notification, because we get this shot of dopamine in our brain when that happens. And dopamine is the same thing that pops up when an alcoholic has alcohol, or, you know, yourself and myself have sugar. It's this pleasure, reward, yay. And so when our brain is waiting for that, it's quite tense. And to sleep, we need to be quite relaxed. So you can see how these two things kind of don't really work very well together. So cutting out blue light, cutting out your phone at least an hour before you go to sleep, really good for sleep hygiene. And then I've also got on here exercise and relaxation. So exercise, don't exercise within the last hour before you go to bed, because then your body will be really full of endorphins, which aren't the best for sleeping. But having done some exercise earlier on in the day will give your muscles time to like use up some of their tension, and your body's energy to be slightly more depleted, and that makes it a lot easier to sleep. Relaxation is anything that will help you to relax. And so usually I mentioned progressive muscle relaxation in the Life of Peace talk, and if you search it, progressive muscle relaxation, on Google or YouTube is what I meant, then there are loads of videos and ways that you can do progressive muscle relaxation, and I really recommend it for doing that before you go to sleep, particularly if you find it hard to fall asleep or stay asleep, because actually if we are struggling with that, it's normally because our muscles are still quite tense and our bodies aren't actually ready to be asleep when we're trying to sleep. So that's something else that can be quite helpful. But also worry time, and I mentioned worries and being worried and how that can keep us awake. And so in a video, Let's Talk About Worry, which is one of the 10-minute talks that we did over summer, you can just YouTube search that, Let's Talk About Worry Encounter Youth, or 10-minute talk, or enough information such that you find it. And I really explain the worry time process, so please go there if worries are something that keep you awake. The whole process is explained in that video. And then this last bit is about our bedrooms in general. So if you're in your room, you have all the stuff that you normally stress about, your stuff for your exams and your work and whatever. You have all the things that you enjoy doing in the day, like your consoles or a TV or your laptop or whatever, and you try to go to sleep in that environment. Your brain is still really aware of those things. It's really helpful if, as much as possible, you can use your room predominantly for sleep and rest. And if you normally do use your room to revise and do things like that, so you actively pack those things away so that your brain is able to associate your bedroom with sleep. It sounds really like, ooh, our brains are like that though. Associations, conditioning, we just get used to something and we just accept that that's the way it's going to be. So if your bedroom or your bed area is for sleep alone, it makes it way easier to sleep when you're supposed to, and to sleep well in that time. But also, I said, some of you sleep fine. You definitely sleep for long enough. In fact, you often sleep for too long. So having sleep hygiene is not just about ways of helping you to fall asleep, but also waking up. And a key point with waking up is to get up when your alarm goes off, and to do that at the same time every day. So snoozing for a whole hour, I know how tempting it is. I do it all the time. Well, not all the time. I really try not to do it actually. It can be really tempting, but it's not helpful. And so there's an app actually called Alarmy, which is alarm with a Y at the end, and it basically gets you to do like arithmetic when you wake up in the morning so that you're actually awake, or you can set it such that you have to get out of bed and take a picture of something in your house in the same way that you took it in the day, so you actually have to leave your bed and do that. So if you're really struggling with waking up, having your alarm slightly further away from you, things like that can be really helpful. And then if you're getting up and falling asleep at the same time every day, your sleep should correct itself. Okay, so why is it so important to sleep? Because our body needs it just as much as it needs food and oxygen. And how are we going to make sure that we sleep while using sleep hygiene? But why is it so important for us to be able to shut down in the eyes of God? Okay, so lastly, this last part, we're really coming to the end now. Oftentimes, like the person who's revising in the middle of the night, or when we're worrying and planning things for the next day, or maybe 10 years time, or thinking about a conversation that we had earlier, part of the reason we're not sleeping is because we feel as though if we go to sleep, then we're not going to be able to do some of the things that we need to do. So sleep is also about surrender and letting go. So I'm going to read to you from Psalm 121 and verse 1. And it says, "My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will indeed never slumber nor sleep. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night." And that's really comforting. God never slumbers nor sleeps. He rests. He rested on, the seventh day after he created the world. But he never slumbers or sleeps. When you are asleep, God keeps watch over you. He protects you. If you're someone who really struggles with nightmares or dreams that you find quite difficult, why don't you just hand that over to God right now and ask him to protect your mind in your sleep? Maybe you avoid sleep because actually you just don't like not feeling like you're in control. I just want to really encourage you to let that go. Because I really believe in a God who created us to be active and fulfilled and do loads of things in the day to be our best versions of ourselves for us and for the people around us and for him, because he loves rejoicing in his creation. But he also created us to be able to get into bed and sleep off the day. And some of us, if we could have any superpower, it might be to not need sleep, because then think how much you'd be able to do. And I always used to think that, but I think that's wrong. Sleep is a gift. And often in our teenage years, it gets really disrupted and it can be hard to see it that way. So let's reclaim that today. Okay. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video, got some stuff out of it. If you've got any questions, feel free to send us a message at Encounter Youth UK on Instagram, or my email address, which is aadekaya@encounterchurch.uk. You can check out our website, which is encounterchurch.uk/youth, for updates about things that are coming up, how we're going to get through all this with the lockdown and all of that stuff. I will be updating that as we go along, and I really look forward to seeing you guys soon. Have a great week. Bye!